Hello, future medical professionals. Welcome to our deep dive into the fascinating world of human biology. Today, we are exploring a critical process, assimilation, a key part of the excretory products and their elimination chapter. You've learned how food is digested and absorbed, but what happens next? How does that food actually become a part of you? We'll journey through 4 levels of understanding: easy, medium, hard, and hardest to unravel this mystery. Get ready to discover how your body intelligently uses every nutrient. Let's start with the basics. What exactly is assimilation? It's simpler than you think, but absolutely essential for life. So, what is assimilation? Imagine your body as a house. You eat food, which is like receiving a delivery of raw materials: bricks, wood, paint. Digestion breaks these down into smaller, usable parts, and absorption brings them inside the house. Assimilation is the crucial next step. It's when your body's cells take these absorbed, simple nutrients, like glucose or amino acids, and actively use them. They build new walls, repair broken windows, or even generate electricity for the house. This process is happening constantly, whether you're growing, healing, or just thinking. Where does this incredible process happen? Well, it occurs throughout your entire body. Once nutrients are absorbed into your bloodstream from the small intestine, they travel to every single cell. Each cell then selectively takes up the specific nutrients it needs. Why is this so important? Because without assimilation, all the digestion and absorption would be meaningless. Your body wouldn't be able to convert the food you eat into energy, new tissues, or repair mechanisms. For example, when you eat a banana, the glucose from it is absorbed. Your muscle cells then assimilate this glucose, either burning it immediately for energy to move or storing it as glycogen for later use during exercise. It's how your body truly makes food its own. Now, let's test your understanding of the basics of assimilation. Take a moment to think about these questions. First, what is the primary definition of assimilation in simple terms? Second, why is assimilation considered the final step after digestion and absorption? And third, give one example of how a nutrient is assimilated in the body. Pause the video if you need more time to answer these. Good luck! Ready to go deeper? At the medium level, we'll explore the sophisticated journey of nutrients and the key players involved in their assimilation. After food is broken down into simple molecules like monosaccharides, amino acids, and fatty acids, these are absorbed mainly in the small intestine. From there, their journey differs slightly. Sugars and amino acids directly enter the bloodstream, heading straight to the liver via the hepatic portal vein. Fats, however, are repackaged into structures called chylomicrons within the intestinal cells and then enter the lymphatic system before eventually joining the bloodstream. This initial processing and transport are critical for setting the stage for assimilation. The liver plays an incredibly central role in assimilation. Think of it as the body's main metabolic control tower. When absorbed nutrients arrive, the liver processes them before they enter general circulation. For instance, if you've eaten a lot of carbohydrates, the liver can convert excess glucose into glycogen for storage or even into fats. It also uses amino acids to synthesize vital plasma proteins, or, if there's an excess, it deaminates them, preparing their nitrogen for excretion as urea and using their carbon skeletons for energy. This central processing ensures that the body's needs are met efficiently. Once nutrients are in the bloodstream, they travel to individual cells. Cells don't just passively absorb everything, they have specific transport mechanisms to take up what they need, like specialized gates for glucose or amino acids. Inside the cell, these simple molecules are then built up into the complex substances your body requires. This building up process is called anabolism. For example, amino acids are assembled into new proteins for muscles or enzymes. A big part of assimilation is also about energy production. Glucose is the primary fuel burned in your mitochondria to produce ATP, the energy currency. Fatty acids can also be used for energy, particularly during prolonged fasting, ensuring your body always has fuel. Now, let's test your understanding of assimilation at the medium level. First, describe the journey of absorbed glucose from the small intestine to a muscle cell, highlighting the role of the liver. Second, how do fatty acids and glycerol differ from carbohydrates and amino acids in their absorption and initial transport pathway? Third, explain the dual role of assimilated nutrients in both energy production and structural synthesis. Fourth, what is anabolism, and how does it relate to the assimilation of amino acids? And finally, name two key functions of the liver in the assimilation process. Take your time to formulate your answers. Ready for a challenge? At the hard level, we'll dive into the intricate biochemical pathways and regulatory mechanisms of assimilation. Assimilation involves distinct biochemical pathways for each macronutrient. For carbohydrates, absorbed glucose is mainly used for ATP production through glycolysis and the Krebs cycle. Any excess is converted to glycogen in the liver and muscles via glycogenesis, or even to fatty acids for long-term storage. When it comes to proteins, absorbed amino acids are primarily directed towards protein synthesis on ribosomes, building everything from enzymes to structural components. Unlike fats and carbs, excess amino acids can't be stored, they undergo deamination in the liver, where the nitrogen is removed and excreted as urea, and the remaining carbon skeletons can be used for energy or converted to glucose or fats. Fats, composed of fatty acids and glycerol, are reesterified into triglycerides and stored in adipose tissue, or used to build cell membranes and hormones. They can also be broken down through beta oxidation for energy. These distinct pathways ensure each nutrient is utilized effectively according to the body's needs. Assimilation is largely an anabolic process, meaning it focuses on building complex molecules from simpler ones. This state is most prominent after a meal, when nutrients are abundant. This contrasts with catabolism, which breaks down molecules to release energy, typically during fasting. This delicate balance between anabolism and catabolism is critical for maintaining overall metabolic health. The entire process is tightly regulated by hormones. Insulin, released after a meal, is the key anabolic hormone. It promotes the uptake and utilization of glucose by cells, stimulates the storage of glucose as glycogen, encourages fat synthesis, and boosts protein production. It essentially tells the body to store and build. While less directly involved in promoting assimilation, glucagon acts in opposition to insulin, mobilizing stored nutrients to maintain blood glucose levels during fasting, ensuring a continuous supply of substrates. Other hormones like growth hormone and thyroid hormones also play roles in influencing overall metabolism and nutrient utilization. The body's organs work in a coordinated symphony during assimilation. The liver is the central command, processing and distributing almost all absorbed nutrients, and also detoxifying harmful substances. Muscles are crucial for storing glycogen and synthesizing proteins, especially important for movement and strength. Adipose tissue serves as the body's primary long-term energy reserve, storing triglycerides. Even the brain, though not a storage organ, is a major consumer of assimilated glucose, demanding a constant supply for its high metabolic activity. This interorgan communication and cooperation ensure that nutrients are efficiently assimilated and distributed where they are most needed, maintaining a dynamic equilibrium between building up and breaking down, which is fundamental for homeostasis and adapting to varying nutritional and energy demands. Time to test your advanced knowledge of assimilation. First, compare and contrast the assimilation pathways of excess glucose versus excess amino acids in the human body. Second, explain how insulin influences the assimilation of all three major macronutrients, carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Third, describe the fate of the amino group removed during the deamination of excess amino acids. Fourth, in which metabolic state is assimilation most prominent, and why? Fifth, how do fatty acids contribute to ATP production, and what is the key pathway involved? Sixth, besides energy, what are two crucial structural components formed from assimilated fats and proteins? And finally, discuss the role of glycogenesis in carbohydrate assimilation. Good luck with these challenging questions. Welcome to the hardest level of assimilation. Here, we'll dissect the molecular machinery, genetic influences, clinical implications, and cutting-edge research that define this complex biological process. At the subcellular level, assimilation is a symphony of organelle functions. Mitochondria, the cell's powerhouses, are where assimilated glucose and fatty acids are ultimately converted into ATP, our energy currency, through processes like the Krebs cycle and oxidative phosphorylation. Ribosomes, whether free in the cytoplasm or attached to the rough endoplasmic reticulum, are the factories for protein synthesis. They precisely assemble assimilated amino acids into specific polypeptide chains, guided by genetic instructions, forming everything from enzymes to structural proteins. The smooth endoplasmic reticulum is vital for synthesizing lipids, like phospholipids for cell membranes and steroid hormones, using assimilated fatty acids and glycerol. The Golgi apparatus then acts as the cell's post office, modifying, sorting, and packaging these newly synthesized lipids and proteins into vesicles for transport within or out of the cell. Even the cytosol plays a crucial role, hosting initial steps like glycolysis and pathways for nucleotide synthesis. This intricate coordination ensures that every nutrient is directed and processed for its specific cellular purpose. The efficiency of assimilation is not static, it's influenced by metabolic flexibility, the body's ability to switch efficiently between different fuel sources, like glucose and fatty acids, based on availability and demand. Optimal assimilation requires this adaptability. Many factors impact this efficiency: the quality of nutrients consumed, the effectiveness of digestive enzymes, the availability of specific nutrient transporters on cell membranes, the delicate balance of hormones, and even individual genetic predispositions. Impaired metabolic flexibility is a hallmark of many metabolic disorders. Furthermore, genetic variations, or polymorphisms, can affect the activity of enzymes, the expression of transporters, and the sensitivity of hormone receptors, leading to individual differences in how efficiently we assimilate nutrients. Beyond genetics, epigenetic mechanisms, which involve changes in gene expression without altering the DNA sequence itself, also play a significant role. These include DNA methylation and histone modifications, which can influence how genes related to nutrient metabolism are turned on or off. This interplay of genetics and epigenetics forms the basis of nutrigenomics, a field exploring how our diet interacts with our genes to influence our unique assimilation capabilities. Dysregulation in assimilation can lead to a spectrum of clinical conditions. Malabsorption syndromes, such as celiac disease or Crohn's disease, directly impair the absorption of nutrients, consequently hindering their assimilation. Inborn errors of metabolism are genetic defects in specific enzymes that disrupt assimilation pathways, leading to the buildup of toxic intermediates or deficiencies of essential products. For example, phenylketonuria, or PKU, is caused by a defect in an enzyme that processes phenylalanine, leading to its harmful accumulation. Diabetes mellitus, a widespread metabolic disorder, profoundly impacts glucose assimilation. In type 1 diabetes, insufficient insulin production prevents cells from taking up glucose, while in type 2 diabetes, cells become resistant to insulin, leading to similar issues with glucose utilization. Liver failure, due to its central role, severely compromises the processing and assimilation of nearly all nutrients, resulting in widespread metabolic dysregulation. Understanding these pathologies highlights the critical importance of proper assimilation for maintaining health. Assimilation is under incredibly tight control by complex regulatory cascades and feedback loops. Hormones like insulin, glucagon, cortisol, thyroid hormones, and growth hormone act as major systemic orchestrators, coordinating nutrient flow and utilization across different organs. At the cellular level, intricate signaling pathways, such as the mTOR pathway which regulates protein synthesis, and AMPK, which senses cellular energy levels, finely tune metabolic fluxes. These elaborate feedback mechanisms ensure that nutrient uptake, utilization, and storage are precisely matched to the body's dynamic physiological needs, adapting to everything from a large meal to prolonged fasting. Looking ahead, the field of nutrigenomics holds immense promise. It studies how individual genetic variations interact with dietary components to influence assimilation and overall health. This allows for the development of personalized nutritional strategies that aim to optimize an individual's assimilation capacity, prevent nutrient-related diseases, and promote long-term well-being by tailoring dietary recommendations to each person's unique genetic and metabolic profile. Assimilation, therefore, isn't just a biological process, it's a foundation for personalized health. Let's challenge your understanding with these difficult questions. First, detail the specific roles of mitochondria and ribosomes in the assimilation of glucose and amino acids, respectively. Second, explain the concept of metabolic flexibility and its importance in efficient nutrient assimilation. Third, how do epigenetic mechanisms contribute to individual variations in nutrient assimilation, independent of genetic sequence changes? Fourth, describe the underlying assimilation defect in type 2 diabetes mellitus and its cellular consequences. And fifth, discuss the critical functions of the endoplasmic reticulum and Golgi apparatus in the assimilation and processing of lipids and proteins. Take your time to think through these complex answers. Continuing our hardest level challenge. Sixth, contrast the assimilation pathway of fatty acids post-absorption with that of glucose, highlighting key differences in transport and initial cellular processing. Seventh, in the context of assimilation, explain how the mTOR pathway contributes to cellular growth and protein synthesis. Eighth, what are inborn errors of metabolism, and how do they exemplify pathologies of dysregulated assimilation? Ninth, beyond hormonal control, describe two other mechanisms, cellular or biochemical, that regulate the efficiency of assimilation. And 10th, how does nutrigenomics aim to revolutionize the approach to optimizing nutrient assimilation for individual health? These questions require a comprehensive understanding of the topic. And that brings us to the end of our in-depth exploration of assimilation. We've journeyed from basic definitions to complex biochemical pathways, regulatory mechanisms, and even clinical implications. I hope this session has not only clarified the topic but also sparked your curiosity for the intricate wonders of human biology. For more such comprehensive educational content, practice questions, and detailed explanations for your NEET preparation, visit synapse.omaps.in. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for continuous learning. Keep striving for excellence, and see you in the next session.